If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. I'm your host, the Innkeeper, and this is our live call-in talk show all about the Wheel of Time. Now, we're back on a Sunday afternoon to talk about the Dragon Reborn, but before we get into our live adaptation, I want to remind you of a couple things we have coming up on the channel. First of all, this Watt Wednesday, we're doing a New Readers episode, our second of our series of New Readers episodes. Can't wait to have the Wheel Reads podcast with us. We're going to talk all about their experience jumping into the Wheel of Time. If you don't know them, they have one veteran bringing two newbies through the process, and it's a lot of fun to just experience their discussion about the Wheel of Time live. Can't wait to do that. And then the following Sunday, we're actually talking about music and the Wheel of Time. No, we don't have the composer with us. We have some friends. Andrel, the Bard of Time, if you've seen or heard his stuff. Well, I mean, I guess if you were here when the show started, you did hear an intro clip that he created for us. We're going to have him on the show, and Nikhil Kopakar, who's a Los Angeles-based musician. He actually created a theme for the Wheel of Time, just as a fan, but he got the Budapest Orchestra involved. It's a lot of fun. We're going to have them both as guests talking about what the Wheel of Time should sound like. That's going to be a fun live episode we do next Sunday. And one last note, I don't know if you've been watching this, but Barney Harris has been taking over the Wheel of Time on social media. First with a couple of tweets. We have he wrote, "Follow me on Barney Harris on Instagram to watch me slowly descend into Instagram addiction." And then later we had him say, "I'm slowly coming around to the idea that I'm more Matt than I maybe thought, but it's a chicken and egg situation." And then he definitely Instagrams and tweets some fun photos. This one recently was of him and Rand at their table read. And then he actually put this meme out, which was a lot of fun, which has a woman drinking the Barney Harris Instagram content. It's a nice, funny meme about Twitter of Time and Instagram Insta of Time. Basically, we can't get enough of Barney Harris on social media. Make sure you're following him. He's hilarious. He's posting all the time across both platforms. It's just funny. His interactions are great. So thank you, Barney Harris. You've made this last couple weeks a lot of fun for fandom. Now, that's all the announcements. Let me welcome my two guests this evening, Todd, who you all know really well, and also Suana Sedai of the Weaves of the Wheel community. Welcome, both of you. How are you doing?
Hey.
It's the double hand. So hey, this is good to see you. Good to see you both, Todd. I know you're obviously here for all these live adaptations. We're missing Mary and Natalia tonight, but you're holding down the fort for our Theoryland crew. And then Suana, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. It's awesome to have you.
Hi.
So why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about the Weaves of the Wheel community before we get started into our live adaptation?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. It's really nice to be here.
Absolutely.
And I never get to catch your show because it's always, I'm in the UK, so it's always in the middle of the night for me. So I'm very excited that you made it possible that I could be here and at the Piece of Power as well. So thank you very much.
Sure thing. And what is
Weaves of the Will?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, Weaves of the Will is a social platform. It's over on Instagram. So we're a social community of Wheel of Time fans. We have a full-page role-play game that you can involve yourself in. So if you want to become an Aes Sedai, an Ashraman, you want to join the Border Yard, or maybe you want to join the Shadow, you can come over to us, and it's really simple to do. You can get involved in fan discussion. You can get involved in creating art, working with other artists, working with writers and storytellers. It's all about creating Wheel of Time content that's really fun, really fresh, and really exciting for all of our members over on Instagram. So we love that we get to represent the Instagram community over there, and we hope to see it grow.
Yeah, it's awesome. You can find links to their community in the description of the video. I thought it was just a role-playing community at first, and I was like, I don't know if I can do it. And I love that you're branching out, and the community is just kind of this broad social community discussing the books, and that the role-playing aspect is one piece of it. So, yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, if you're interested in this, like I said, Instagram, I love the community that's growing over there around the Wheel of Time. Yeah, I think Weaves of the Wheel is one of the big pieces of that. So, yeah, go check them out. Like I said, check their links out after the show. They're in the description. I think a lot of you out there would really enjoy their community. So thank you for being here. And now let's jump into this. You mentioned to me that The Dragon Reborn is like your favorite book in the Wheel of Time. So before we jump into this prologue and begin adapting this for TV, why is The Dragon Reborn your favorite, Suana?
To me, it's one of those really, it's such an epic ending for the story. So of all the endings in the books, and some of them are phenomenal, but for me, the ending of The Dragon Reborn is just one of the most epics. It really announces to the world the intention of this new power, this new guy. It's like you see this connectivity where you see other nations just coming in, and I don't think that's always really tackled that well in other fantasy series, where you see nations of other people. You see the Aiel come in, and we get to meet this whole new branch of people in a series a little bit later on, not right from the beginning, but we get to see that, and we get to be like, okay, well, what's their intention? They've got this whole other reason for being, this whole other reason for being in this place and crossing the wall to find out. And it's such an epic moment that I can remember reading it, and I can remember not enjoying the book on the first read, but I've got...
Oh, I don't know if we lost you there a little bit, Suana. We'll wait and see if the Zoom picks us back up, and once she does, we'll have her continue that explanation.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, we lost you there just for a moment.
Oh, sorry.
No
For me, this is one of those books that, you know, when people say, should I reread The Wheel of Time? I'm like, just for book 3, you should reread The Wheel of Time, because you'll appreciate it so much more the second time around.
Well, I like that. I like that you love this, and I like that we picked you to come on for this book. I can't wait to hear your opinions about this. Now, Todd, I want us to bring... I've done this before. For those of you that are watching, this is the first time. Our live adaptation, the whole concept here is, what if we were in the writing room with Rafe and his team? How would we adapt these books for television? What would we be willing to keep, cut, or modify to make that happen? Basically, what are the themes? What are the characters? What are the plots that are the most important to stay? And what can we let go of? And if you didn't watch our last one, which was the end of The Great Hunt, you will not know that my panelists in a majority voted to get rid of the blowing of the horn. So sometimes I allow for a retcon because I run this place. So I'm going to give, this is the last opportunity for a retcon here. Suana, would you want to keep the blowing of the horn at the end of the Great Hunt, or would you want to cut it like my panelist did? And Todd, I think I know, looks like her Zoom is having a little bit of trouble here. I know where you're at. Are you still at a cut this?
I'm still at a cut, yes.
So you're still at cut. So I'm willing to keep the horn in our adaptation. So when Zoe gets back with us, I'm going to give her the option to make that retcon and pull it back into our adaptation, because I know a lot of you were upset by this whole.
Very upset. Yeah, I got a lot of.
We got a lot of hate. We got a lot of hate for that. So, Suana, you're back. I want to give you the option here.
Hi.
Were you no worries. Were you a keep or a cut for the blowing of the horn at the Great Hunt? Would you keep that on the TV show, or would you cut it?
Okay, I watched that back and I thought about this long and hard, and I think maybe you might have been on something. Just because, don't hate me here, but I think you might be on something, because it's a doomsday switch. And blowing the horn at that stage activates that doomsday switch, and it does maybe take something away from it right at the end of the book. So I love it in the book. I love it in the book. But I will say that just maybe for TV, it is one of those little changes that they do make just to really maximize the impact at the end.
Oh my gosh. I gave the option, so you got to tell me yes or no. Is it a keep or a cut? That's all you have to, is it keep or cut? Oh my gosh. Okay. Look, this goes out to everybody watching. I tried to retcon this thing, and our guest here decided to go along with our previous panelists. So it's out of our live adaptation. Let's jump into this. That makes me laugh so hard. Okay, The Dragon Reborn. Let's get into this now. Prologue of The Dragon Reborn. We have this whole introduction to Pedro Niel, Lord Captain Commander, basically the Dome of Truth moment here. And he has this, it's a very specific moment with Jarrett Beyer coming in and telling him about what had happened. This seems like a really key scene for me, an opportunity for them to really introduce the culture and the nation around the Whitecloaks. And so for me, this is definitely a piece that I'd hope that they do keep. Whether or not they include this in the first season, second season, how that works, we know the Whitecloaks are going to be in the show at this point. So I want them to dig in. I'm actually suggesting we modify this and get more than the books actually show us. So Todd, where are you on this question about the Whitecloaks, this whole prologue? Do you think the prologue's necessary from a plot and characterization standpoint? Or do you think they should just drop this whole kind of give us a little bit of the Whitecloaks and move on? What's your feeling about this one?
I love this prologue, and I think it needs to be in there. And the reason, the biggest reason I like this prologue is because you see Fain playing the Whitecloaks, and then you see what happens to Carradine, and you realize after I don't know how many times I reread this before it hit me. Fain is playing the Whitecloaks against each other because he already knows what the Shadow is trying to achieve. And so he's working actively like Mordeth would against the Shadow. And so I think that this really goes deep into the strategy that Fain is playing against the Shadow, using the Whitecloaks to fight for it.
Yeah, I think you brought up, and I saw this show up in chat, this question of how much should the focus be on Fain versus on the Whitecloaks. I mean, do you just drop Jarrett Beyer from this, and do you have this be a conversation between Pedro Niel and Fain? Like, where do you go from here? Suana, what's your thought about this prologue? Did you like this? Do you think this is an important thing for viewers in a TV series to see what we saw in the books, see more of it, see less of it?
This is a prologue I really love as well, so I'm in complete agreement with Todd. I think it should be extended. I think Carradine as a character should be extended as well, and I'd really like to see them focus on this very human character that's part of this organization that is for the light, and actually really show this dark side of humanity through him. So I feel like he's a character that I want to see a lot more of, and I really would like to see them put a lot of emphasis on this part of the book, as well as with Pedro Nile as well. He's maneuvering, and I think those subtle nuances are very important for television. We've seen, like with the success of Game of Thrones, people really enjoyed seeing that human nature and how even people who are inherently good can make decisions that are quite selfish and can make decisions that support their organization and will put people at risk in doing so, but they genuinely believe that they are part of the good side. So I think that this should be, as a chapter, it should be extended. And I think I would be really disappointed if I saw those things taken away from the series.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's so many dark elements, like Jarrett Byers, just obsession at this point with Perrin and, rooting out the Dark Friends. And then you have Jackham Carran, who clearly is working for the other side. And then you have Ordeith, or, Fain, showing up and already insinuating himself into the machinations of Pedro Nile. So it's really interesting. It's very dark. Like, if you consider this whole prologue, our introductions to the Whitecloaks have all been rather dark episodes of their interactions. And maybe that's just, par for course for the Whitecloaks. But I thought it was interesting just how much darkness there was in this. And I do like that, which is seeing another nation, just seeing how many plans are going on. One big thing that did stand out to me this time was Pedro Nile. I had forgotten that his goal, that his plan was basically to have the Whitecloaks be the ones that save the world, right? He wanted them to go to the last battle and have basically legends told about them, as they were the ones that defeated the Dark One. And so it's quite interesting just to see his plans begin to take shape, and everyone affected by those plans. And then, like you pointed out, Todd, then Fain coming in to this moment. So I'm agreeing with you here. Are we all for kind of actually extending this portion and hope that Rafe and his team kind of dig in and give us more? Yeah, I think that's absolutely where I'm at with this. I want more of this prologue, just like we're getting more Logain. I want more, whether or not it's Jackham Carradine or more Pedro Nile. I want more of the Whitecloaks at this point, because, obviously they're keeping them, but I want to dig into their motivations and understand them better. So, yeah, this whole dome of truth, I'm really hoping we get a lot more than we saw here. So, is there anything else that stood out here, Suana, from the prologue that you think is an important thing for Rafe and his team to glob onto? Whether or not it's something that was said, whether or not it was just some way that they introduced certain characters. Is there anything here that they have to get right?
I think you are being introduced to Nile for the first time. So that is a really important thing to get right. Like, the thing is, he's almost a Whitecloak that you kind of like. I know that's probably not something that most people like to hear, but he's a Whitecloak that you almost like, because you can tell that he does have a goodness in him. It's just, he's got an agenda as well. And I think that makes, for me, having characters that are inherently evil, they're interesting enough, but they're never as interesting as the characters, as the antagonists that are inherently good, like Elida is. They think they're doing the right thing, but oh god, I love to hate them, and I want them to get that character just right for me. I think it's really important. So I want to see this extended. Yeah.
Todd, I'm seeing a lot of comments about this in chat. Before we move on from the prologue, are you a cut buyer, though? Keep everything else. Pedron can get, reports. We don't necessarily need buyer. We could merge him potentially. Do you think he really plays a key role in this moment and later on in the books that can't just be passed on to somebody else?
This is going to sound goofy, but I like Buyer. Not because he's a good person, but because he's a good character. And I think that he represents the essence of the Whitecloaks. I feel like he is what they are. There's a part where when he catches Perrin after he kills the Whitecloak, and he talks about how he was beating Perrin and there was no feeling to it. It's just what he was doing. It wasn't because of anything other than that's what he was supposed to do. There was no, Perrin said he didn't feel like he was doing it out of hatred or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I think that kind of brings about the essence of the Whitecloaks to a certain extent, that they don't do what they're doing out of any kind of hatred, but it comes across that way just because of who they are.
Yeah, I mean, I like that.
I disagree about the hatred thing. I think there is a lot of hatred, like a lot of hatred from them. I just think it's geared in very much one way, that it's like a lot of politicians, they're very agenda based, aren't they? And it doesn't, they say they're good guys, but they're not good guys. They're doing things for the greater good. But a lot of them do have hatred because they're not very open-minded to the fact that people are different. And that's the Whitecloaks. I think they are geared. I think a lot of them are, and that's why so many of them are like dark friends or want to become questioners, because they need to get that hatred out of them somehow, but they don't want to go down the shadow route. So, everyone needs an outlet for that evil, I think.
I do think that Bayer is an extreme in some ways of other people in the organization, but I think that's important to show that extreme. I saw that show up in chat. I would agree with that comment. By the way, just as a reminder, this is a live call and talk show. We're not going to start taking calls just yet. That'll be in about 20 minutes or so. But you will be able to give us a call, give us your opinion about what you think about our cuts and our keeps as far as the Dragon Reborn is concerned. And you'll be able to ask us any questions, or if you have a comment or a question for Suana, you'll be able to do that then. So, and just if you're here and you're enjoying this kind of live content, please give the video a like just to make sure other fans can find it. And of course, subscribe if you'd like, and continue following us. We do these weekly shows every week. So as we move on to chapter 1 here, I want to make one final note about the Whitecloaks, which is we didn't really talk too much about Fain in this part. I'm really hopeful that they give us more Fain here. Seeing how he twists nations, how he's able to twist a nation itself, or an organization, simply by whispering in the ears of the right people. And I want to see that. I want to see that build.
I am just here for Fain getting a better ending. That's
well, that you bring up a good point. You bring up a good point. For those of you that are watching, this is a spoiler episode. There's going to be spoilers of the books. We're not going to purposely tell you things that happen at the very end, though that may come up. So I just want you to remember that you will run into spoilers that are beyond the Dragon Reborn. This isn't a new reader kind of thing. We definitely dig into why we need to keep certain things, and you'll see that in chat and in the show, which is we're going to talk about why certain things have to stay, and we're going to touch on later themes. But yeah, to that point, I know what you're saying. A lot of people want to see a better ending. I would say even Brandon might want to see them play with the ending of Fain a little bit more, maybe.
I feel for me, like, sometimes now when I read his character, knowing what happens, it ruins it just a little bit for me, because I think he was so great. And then it just kind of fizzled a little bit, and I just feel I could get quite emotional about it, because I just feel like my husband personally, it's like one of his favorite characters, and he just feels like, oh, when it happens, he's like, oh, is that it? So for him, I want something better.
Well, if you're interested, that's a great point. If you're interested about Fain, we did an episode back in March or so, February, March, about Fain, and we actually dig into kind of what that ending was and if it was a good one or a bad one. So we have to do it again for sure. Now we get into chapter 1, and I think we're going to find some disagreement here, which is how necessary are these first 5 chapters when it comes to translating this into a TV series. We get Perrin here where he's guiding the traveling, the Tinker woman, Leia, to the camp. And they've been doing this for a while. Lots of women have come in, and they've guided them in. And Perrin kind of, we have this whole kind of like, he brings us into the camp for the first time. You can almost, from a cinematic standpoint, imagine this moment, right? they come into this bowl area, as he describes it, and you see everything, and you see Moiraine and Lan, and she goes into their tent, and you have this kind of moment of like, this is the beginning. It almost feels like it should be the beginning of a season, if you will. But I don't know how necessary this scene is. I mean, I like it from a cinematic approach, but Todd, do you like we have this point of view from Perrin, but do we need to have this awareness that all these people are coming and talking to Moiraine to introduce basically this moment?
What I have, I talk about how slow this is. Really, I think it can you can move this along a lot quicker than they show in the books. Really, I don't know that it's totally necessary to show all of it, because there's really not much that happens like when they're sitting and waiting. I'm kind of let's just move it along.
Well, because you have like this part, she goes into Moiraine's tent, if you will, and then you have Min does a viewing of her, tells Perrin, she's gonna die basically, and they talk about viewings a little bit. Loial joins them, and they talk about what the meaning of ta'veren is, and then Rand comes out of Moiraine's tent, and he runs off, and then Perrin goes to talk to him. Like, Suana, do you like this? I like the interaction between Perrin and Rand here, but do we need kind of all this buildup of people are coming in, and we're going to talk about ta'veren, and we're going to have all this exposition?
Okay. Well, first of all, let's start with what the chapter is called. I don't know if you can see that. It says waiting. And it's a foreshadow of what this book is going to make you do. And that is, it's going to make you wait for something to happen. This chapter is so unnecessary. And this is why I always say this book's better on the reread, because when you start reading it, you are just like, okay, let's move along. That's something, please. Can something happen? Like now, especially when you had so much happen at the end of book 2, and you're just like on this high, and then it just makes you crash down because you're like, oh, okay, I just want something to get me going again. And this is just like totally and it's actually a stroke of genius on Robert Jordan's part. But when you're first reading it, you're like, no, I'm not happy about this at all. I feel that a lot of this chapter could just be gone. I know what you're saying about that sort of cinematic view where you come in on the camp and you see the dragon banner. And if we sort of look a couple of chapters ahead, Rand not having control over the One Power yet and him sort of losing control, I think almost what you could do is just narrow in on this camp and maybe just the ground shaking, because Rand is off having one of his moments, and you're having to see the camp dealing with that kind of, so capturing more of a mood rather than something in particular happening. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got this Tinker layer bringing across news of the Whitecloaks, and you've just learned about that in the prologue. You know what the Whitecloaks are doing already, so you're not getting any new information here. So her character is completely unnecessary. It doesn't need to be there, and I just feel like with this you can kind of wrap this up in a scene and move along.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point, which is I like this idea that they're in a waiting mode. I think that's okay, but I don't think it has to be a slow experience for the viewer. That is to say, they could bring us into the camp. They could basically have Moiraine in her tent and Perrin and Loial and Min chatting, and then the earth could rumble, right? Like you said. And Perrin could be like, I'm going to go check on him, kind of thing. And they could have that moment of discussion of indecision that he has, and you could get this idea that there's dreams that are happening without it being a very drawn out thing. Perrin's part about basically, like, there's this whole section of him wanting to save Leia, a lot of when the battle begins, and they have this discussion about viewings. She ends up being a device that's kind of unnecessary here. So I agree with that. I would certainly want to move along these chapters pretty. I mean, these first 4 are very much just Basically, in chapter 3, I think we get Moiraine comes out and shares the news that Leia that she gave, and you're like, okay, cool, that's awesome. And then Min's talking about fate, and there's a lot of exposition around here about like your own choices and a lack of choices, and Taviran and all these kind of ideas. And they talk about, people are being killed by the Grey Men, but it's a lot of just telling you what's happening in the world for 3 or 4 chapters. Like, what is though? So Todd, if we were to fast forward this, what comes out to you in this first 3 or 4 chapters? What is important to you?
In chapter 2, what I feel, it kind of shows you when Perrin and Rand are talking that they're both kind of walking that razor's edge. Perrin with the wolves and Rand with Satan, and that's kind of really the only thing you get out of the first few chapters is you see how they're both balancing on that edge of falling off and not sure how to handle it and not sure exactly what to do with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. And for those of you that are watching in chat, I'm curious if you would actually cut a large portion of this and speed it along. Do you think there's too much waiting? Give a thumbs up in chat over on YouTube. A thumbs up if you think that we're just waiting too long for this to begin and if they need to speed this up, or a thumbs down if you'd like Rafe to pretty much just take us through the book at the beginning here, just like it's at. I think everyone has a sense, but maybe I'm wrong. What is Suana? There's a piece here that I really like, which is the dream sequence that Perrin has. Do you think that's necessary for this, or do you think you would cut that also?
Okay, I mean, this could be a little bit controversial, but it's something that's come up in our community chats quite a lot, and that is our concern that the world of dreams might not actually translate onto screen very well, because how would you differentiate between the real world and the dream world? And if you think about the dream world, it is quite complex, and there's a number of ways that people use it as well. And in my experience with television, especially like fantasy television, when things get too complicated, they don't translate too well. Magic, very complicated magic, doesn't translate overly well on screen either. So I kind of feel like the dream sequences in themselves might not. This isn't me saying that I don't want to see the dream, because I do, right, and I love it in the books, but I do have a lot of concerns that it's not something that's going to play on screen very well at all, and might confuse the audience too much. It will please the Wheel of Time audience, but when you look at the numbers, if someone's sitting down as a TV executive, and I've got my TV executive hat on, which I absolutely have no qualifications for whatsoever, but if I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, okay, who's my target audience? It's probably not majorly the Wheel of Time audience, because we are the smaller segment. It's going to be the Game of Thrones TV audience. That's the audience I'm going to want to hit, because those are the people that are in the millions that are going to be looking for something new to watch, and they're going to want something that translates easily on screen, like what Game of Thrones did. So I feel like, it's a sad thing, but I do think it's one of the things that will get cut. But what is essential is what happens in this dream sequence, and that's the Forsaken, because that's the important part here. You're seeing for probably the first time the hierarchy in the Forsaken, the dynamics between them. So you've got Isharmel coming along and sort of interrupting Bilal and Ravin as well, who they clearly don't like each other, but then suddenly they like each other because they like each other more than they like Isharmel. And then, you've got Lanfear just wandering off, sort of doing her own thing as she does. Like, I'm not concerned with you guys because I've just got my own agenda. And that is the important part from this chapter. It's not the dream sequence, it's not the wolves, it's not any of that. It's the Forsaken dynamics, and that is the part I would like to see really emphasized on screen.
Yeah, I would agree that we don't probably need yet another moment with Perrin talking to Ishamael and Ishamael trying to get him to drink want this drink? I mean, we're assuming that take a drink again. Even Lanfear plays that. Take this drink. I like the machination side of it, of the Forsaken. So I would agree with that, which is this idea, I would almost say cut to the part with Lanfear, because that would be something new, where Lanfear interrupts his dreams, and then he pushes away at them and ends up following her in some form or fashion, and then sees this incident. So I would still like to see it, but I think you're right. I would hope they would focus on the Forsaken. That would be a good section to understand. There's more out there, and they're meeting up, and they're discussing things, and they're planning things, and Perrin doesn't really get much about their plans. You just see that it's happening, and you're intrigued.
It's just his point of view. That's the only thing. And at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to see things from a character's point of view so much on screen. You're going to see it from the audience point of view. So
Sure.
that's going to that dynamic in itself is going to completely change as well.
Yeah, Todd, are you a fan of this? Which is, of the dream sequence, at least right here, just really get the fact that the Forsaken are kind of, scheming here, and have Perrin be aware of that in the dream.
And I have in my notes, I say we can cut some of this, but need the Forsaken change my mind. So that's where I'm at on it. I think the Forsaken, it really, like you said, it shows the dynamic of the Forsaken and how they work against but with each other, I guess.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And so for those of you that are actually watching us in chat over on YouTube, thumbs up if you would cut more of the dream sequences, basically, from these first 3 books, or if you want to keep all of them. So thumbs up to cut some, thumbs down, keep all the dream sequences. Because I know that that's come up a lot with this adaptation concept, which is how much of these dreams can we keep? So I'm kind of curious what people in chat will say. If you happen to be watching us on Facebook or Twitter, come join us for the rest of the show over on YouTube. Hope you've enjoyed this kind of half an hour discussion so far about the Dragon Reborn. If you want to find out if we decide to cut or keep the World of Dreams, and how we handle the next couple chapters, come visit us over there, and really appreciate you being with us up to this point. I'm seeing some reactions already in chat. It definitely looks kind of like a mixed bag here. I think a lot of this is up and down. Jonathan just wrote
I've seen a lot of people say that, cut some of the more complicated stuff, but keep it in general. And I think that's probably the best way that it's going to work, is just simplifying the entire thing, because I think it might be a bit too complicated for an audience that hasn't read the books.
Yeah, this is, and so Kansan E said, cut some, sure, but Tar is important as a whole. Totally agree with that. So I'm kind of in this mixed bag. I think they're going to have to cut a little bit of it, but they have to actually dig in and do it really well. I'm with you there, Suana, which is they have to figure out a way that this is kind of a believable and understandable world of dreams, separate from the real world, in such a way that we really capture it. And then I saw a previous comment by Jonathan saying we were really cutting a lot of Perrin's story arc here. That's probably not going to be the case when this next chapter comes up, at least how I'm feeling about it, which is I like this idea of getting Rand struggling with, what to do next. So I think they need to, I think that can be done really well and keep the viewer interested. I love this idea that we can jump then to this dream sequence. And then I absolutely believe we have to keep the wolves portion of this, pushing basically Perrin out of the dream and back into the real world where this battle ensues. Having Rand's kind of waking up the world by rumbling the mountain and basically calling all Myrddraal in the local area to him. Having this battle come in where Rand's clearly feeling like he's going to cause, harm to his friends. But then focusing on Perrin and the wolves here, I want to see that completely happen. I want to see this battle basically happen from Perrin's point of view. I know it won't be completely from it, but I want to see them dig into Perrin's arc right here that really gets going. Todd, is that kind of how
I'd like to see Perrin becoming the wolf in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, we have to. I mean, Todd, is that where you're at with this? Do you want this to kind of really embed in Perrin's wolf nature in this moment, or do you want to get a larger view of the battle?
No, I want this to be about Perrin, and once again, it kind of goes back to the other chapter where Perrin is again on that razor's edge of almost letting himself go and becoming, who we meet later, but going that direction. And I mean, he's really close to it several times in this fight of just completely and totally letting go. The other thing I like about it is when he at the end of the battle, when Uno says we can skin all the wolves and use them to keep everybody warm, and he says no.
Oh, yeah.
and he's he backs Uno down, somebody who you don't get to back down. He backs him down, and I think that's another cool. It kind of shows Perrin is going to come into more than what he is right now.
Yeah, I'm seeing, by the way, some comments like hashtag let Marcus wolf or let Marcus howl. Yeah, right. We need to see Marcus in this moment really embed in this. I absolutely agree. Dana put hashtag young bull. Right. That is, for me, in these first 5 chapters, that is one of the most key aspects that they get done well in this, which is Perrin's deep struggle that's going to begin here with this nature, because obviously we're going to come into that in other chapters where he sees somebody that's been overwhelmed by it, and I think that is really important. Is there anything here, Suana, though, that you would say we don't get from the battle, we don't actually get in the books, that you would want to see them put in the TV series itself? Is there a point of view that we miss out on? Is there something else that Rafe and his team should add?
I think when you're at this stage where this is like the first really big, exciting thing that's happened in this book so far. So in my head, I would imagine that that's the end of the episode. That's the end of that particular episode, is this kind of battle, and it leaves you on a bit of a hanger as to what happens next. So I think it's probably really important that we do see what Rand is doing, because we're at that point where we go into the next chapter and Rand is sort of sat there like, I couldn't do anything. I was completely useless. I would like to see, instead of it being we go to Rand afterwards and he's sat there like I couldn't do anything, I would actually like to see, as the battle is happening, seeing Rand trying to channel, trying to get something, setting fire to the trees because he has no real control. Because I think this is actually, insofar he's been saying, I can't control it, I don't know what I'm doing. And we've seen maybe the ground shake a little bit, but we haven't actually seen him completely fail at it. So that, I think we need to see that happen during the battle. We need to see Rand's point of view, in that he is trying so hard and he is failing miserably, because it captures for us that, oh my God, like the fate of the world is in this guy's hands and he's completely useless. What, he's just some whiny, moany kid who doesn't know what he's doing. Light help us all. And that's really important. So yeah, you have to add that in. I wouldn't want to see that as a secondary thing.
Could you see that from Perrin's point of view while the fight is going on?
In other words, like you see him far away, but you see it happening, but not just up close. That's an interesting idea to be aware of it, him trying, but not necessarily taking us away from the battle for it.
I think if you can capture the fear that, oh my God, Rand can't actually do anything, then yes. Because I think the fear is the key element there, in the fact that he can't even defeat this little band of Trollocs that have descended on this camp. How is he going to defeat Trollocs at Shale Ghul?
Right. Oh, yeah, that's a great point. And it almost might be interesting to see him kind of step out and look down on the battle and not be able to even defend himself, and have a wolf come in and take out a Trolloc or something that was going after Rand. Like basically show how impotent he was in that moment. Yeah. And where he's trying to pull the mountain down on them because he thinks that is what might help, but he can't even defend himself. So I would almost be interested in seeing from afar Perrin notice that the wolves, who Moiraine says basically the wolves are what stopped them from all being killed. I mean, she tells them that, and to the fact that she actually like heals a bunch of the wolves because she knows how much she owes their lives to them. So it'd be interesting to see one of them maybe even save Rand.
One of the things that I'm curious about is at the end, Perrin thinks about a group that's down on the side of the mountain and they're trying to kill a Myrddraal, and only one of the group survives and walks away. And I want to see how they don't necessarily have to do it now in this scene, but how do they make it so that that Perrin is feeling what's going on there? And that's going to be something that they're going to have to work pretty hard to capture, I think. Yeah,
and I think I saw someone point this out in chat. We have to be careful to give Perrin too much of a kind of like logical, he's standing back and watching everything. It would have to be just a sense of this from the wolves, maybe speaking to him, telling him what's happening in his awareness, basically happening, but not in, we need young bull here, right? We can't actually have Perrin himself really kind of looking at this detached, from a detached perspective. So I love this aspect of what we're talking about here. I think this is really important that they really embed this into this scene, that the writers really capture that sequence basically of Rand and not sure what he should do, jumping into this dream sequence of the Forsaken, and then jumping back out into this battle where then Rand ends up disappearing. I want to suggest maybe this small tweak. Rand disappearing happens after they all go to sleep. Is there any of this part of this where you would have wanted Rand to have already disappeared? In other words, he's unable to fight and he leaves then. And they're unsure. You want him to actually have that post-battle moment. Okay.
Yeah.
You both seem to be shaking your head, so I won't push too hard on that. For those of you that are watching right now, do you want to see Rand, do you want this to be an experience where we know that Rand was basically impotent during the battle? Thumbs up or thumbs down in chat if you want it to kind of find out post-battle. I'm interested if, with that idea that was proposed, how much chat is in or out of that idea. So I want to call this out. I know we passed the dream sequence, but it's something I wrote in my notes that I liked just how many voices were different, pulling different strings. Moiraine is trying to tell Rand to do something and Perrin to do something. Lanfear is trying to tell them to do something. Ishamael is trying to tell them to do something. You have Myrddraal that are involved with Jared and Carradine telling him to do something that's different than what Pedro and Niel is telling him to do. That's different from what Fain's telling them all to do. I really want them to capture this, which is just this, so many strings being attached to these individuals and pulling them in different directions. I want that. I want the viewers to feel that, which is that this world is so huge and there's so many plans taking place, and that we all buy into Rand's confusion because we're all kind of confused. Like, I don't know what the right decision is here. So yeah, I'm hopeful for that. I'm looking at chat and lots of thumbs up. Zach wrote, "Impotence, please." In chat, I love that. Yes.
So, someone said about Perrin, Rand needs a little blue pill, so I just want to second that as well. And also, Jonathan R said that he wants to talk about Perrin and his thin linens, which also I was here to do too. I made a note in my books as well about, he jumps up in his thin linens. That was very important. We need to talk about that too.
Yes, you want a little bit of young bull, sexy young bull? Is that what you're saying? Hashtag sexy young bull?
Hashtag sexy young bull. Let's start that one.
Nice, Jonathan. I like that. I like that you noted that in your notes. That is real dedication to the live adaptation. You can't let the little details go. So then
I'm here for the ladies and the boys too.
That's right. We can all appreciate that. So Perrin does wake up in the camp next, and actually maybe this is a great moment. It is a live call and talk show. Let's let the callers call in. If you remember, the phone number here is 1-313-825-5968 or 1-313-TALK-WATT. Give us a call. We'll get you into the show. If you have a question, just a comment, you want to tell Suana how amazing she is, or if you want to talk about the community or have a question for her, or if you think we're wrong in how we adapted something, call in. We love hearing from fans from across the world. Literally across the world, we get calls, from as far away as Australia, Sweden. I think we've gotten some calls from Japan before. Anyway, we'd love to hear from you and look forward to bringing you into the call. We'll leave that open for the next, 30 or 40 minutes as we discuss this. So before we bring in our first caller, let's jump into this next chapter here. We have chapter, I think this is 5, Nightmares Waking. It's chapter 6. Because we have Moiraine, of course, healing people afterwards, and we can talk in detail if we want to talk about that, but Lan admonishing Rand, fight like a man after the battle's over. But basically, we've all decided we like how the battle occurs, the post from that people stay there, and then we have the waking up in chapter 6, and it says the hunt begins, which is really awesome. Like, we had the great hunt in the previous book, but now the hunt begins, which I love that kind of back and forth on their chapter titling. Rand disappears. Suana, I'll give you the first take of this. Do you like how this chapter kind of unfolds, which is basically like, Rand's gone, we need to follow him. You stay here, you come with us, you go to Tar Valon, and we have this kind of breakup moment where it's like, ready, set, go.
I do like this chapter, but okay, I like everything that happens in this chapter, but I would like to see it maybe broken up just ever so slightly, because yes, you do say about how, okay, some people are going to go to Tar Valon. So at this point, we've got a really key opportunity for Screen to actually go to Tar Valon, because we know we've already sent some people off in that direction anyway. So it's a chance for us to actually break away from this area and go and see some of the other characters that have gone off in the other direction. So I would definitely want to add something else here to take us away from what we've been doing in the camp. And I think as well, that would be really good for setting suspense for the next episode, because we're like, Rand left. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? Instead of actually going after him right away, we're going to go and see another part of the story. And that, for me, is something that I would do if I was making this show. And on Prime I am available, so hit me up. And we also, I think as well, like Rand leaving, it really makes you consider his character here. Like, he's left. Why is he left? What is he doing? And there's some really key moments here where everyone's talking about, did you dream of a sword? Did you dream of a sword? I dreamt of a sword. Well, Una's like, I always flaming dream of swords. And, this is the moment where it's like, why did Rand leave? What the hell is going on? Why is everybody talking about a sword? I don't have any idea what's going on here, but I'm judging Rand a little bit here. I'm starting to judge him. Maybe he's not this great big hero. Maybe he's just run away. Maybe it's too much. And he's like, I'm starting, even I think it's Massimo is saying like, why would he leave us? Why did he abandon us? What did we do wrong? This is a really key moment for us to actually start judging Rand. And I know some people would really like to judge Rand. I can see on screen Sam is writing about him having a tantrum, and I'm just like, if you ever want to discuss Rand and his tantrums, go and talk to Sam, because she has a lot of opinions on that.
Yeah, that's a great point, that this is an interesting moment for viewers to judge who he is. You had that land moment where it's like, be a man kind of thing, and you have Rand over here like, he starts going down that road of like, this is going to affect my friends, and what do I need to do? And I like the idea that we're left kind of, like you said, judging him. Todd, before I ask your opinion on this, let's bring our first caller. We have Jonathan. Let's bring him into the show. Jonathan. Oh, I can't tell if I just lost him. Hold on. We'll have to wait till he calls back. I think I inadvertently knocked him out of the show. Sorry, Jonathan. Give us a call back. We'll get you right back into the show. So I'll wait for Jonathan to call us back. Why don't you, Todd, give me your opinion on this, which is, do you like this idea of moving away from what's going on there and actually pulling from Tar Valon at this point, basically taking us to Varen and company and seeing their travails and then coming back to this later? Is that do you like the kind of stepping away?
I could go for that. This is a really long and really detailed chapter, and there's a lot of, we need to do this and we got to do this, and why did he leave, and who's dreaming what, and it's just a lot of detail that I don't think is going to translate very well in the show. So I feel like we can probably look at other things. Like you said, I didn't even think about going to Varen, but that would be a good way to kind of mix it up in this, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a good moment to step away from that. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. And Jonathan just called back. Let me bring Jonathan into the show. Hey, Jonathan, welcome to Dusty Wheel. How you doing? Great. Sorry for cutting you off there. So what's your comment?
I have a question all the way back to the prologue. So we all know that Valda has been brought on in season 1. Yep. And I was wondering, what do you guys think of maybe Valda's importance being moved up and maybe potentially replacing Niall. Or maybe, because everybody, well, I don't want to ruin it, but we know what happens to.
Yeah, exactly. This is spoilers. I mean, you can say what you need to say. If anyone's watching it, they know there's spoilers going on. So yeah, feel free to complete your comment.
Well, the fact that Valda takes out Niall, just wanted to, do we see that happening sooner because it happened so late? And Valda may be more important?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Do either of you have an opinion on this, which is, we know that Valda's been cast, and we haven't seen other people be cast at this point. Do you think that is going to fast forward? Is that telling us that Rafe plans to fast forward his plot line, or merge it with someone else's? What do you think here?
I think it's quite possible, because we've got thousands of characters in the Wheel of Time, and as much as it hurts us all, there are going to be somewhat major characters that do get cut, because there's just not going to be enough space. So it's quite probable that because Valda's story progresses further, that they already have him in that position, in Niall's position, or perhaps maybe what they do is that Valda is, they have Bornhald, and he is like the main guy, and Valda is like his second, and he maybe replaces him, just to sort out that sort of Whitecloak dynamic right from the beginning. I could see that being a very probable thing, because I am quite prepared for the fact that we probably will lose some major characters, especially as it progresses.
Yeah, do you have any, Todd, would you see this as a good time for them to kind of just show us maybe the hierarchy and just kind of how those dynamics work when leadership changes basically among the Whitecloaks, and just kind of fast forward that idea? Or do you like the, what's your thought here?
My only issue with this is that Padan is one of the 5 great captains. So does that make any difference in keeping him in there, or can we squeeze him out and just, I guess, name him, but not really do anything with him? That would be my only problem with it.
Well, I mean, certainly when you take out leadership like that, let's say whatever, there's some struggle and leadership changes, that does set an organization like that on edge, right? It changes the sense of what's going to happen. So I think you could use this as a moment where, he's one of the 5 great captains, but maybe he's recently deceased, if you will. Exactly. Jonathan, what would you do with this? You saw Valda being announced and cast. Do you like the idea of switching this up, fast forwarding it, or do you want them to keep it the same?
I personally do. I want them to. You can have Niall just be an old guy that we see for like 5 minutes, and then he's dead, and then have the Whitecloaks be as awful as they are, with Valda in control for the rest of the series.
Yeah, you certainly could have Fain and Valda be the connection, and you could have that almost kick that off potentially. So, yeah, great thought there. When it comes to the Dragon Reborn, sorry, no, I'm going to ask you this now that Suana has she avoided the retcon in our previous live adaptation, and she took away the horn. Do you like this idea of stopping or blowing the horn this early in the series for the TV show, or do you like that scene so much that you think it has to be adapted as it was in the books in The Great Hunt?
Cut the horn. We can find some other way for him to blow.
I like that. Like, find another thing for Barney to blow.
Barney to blow. Yeah, there we go.
Find another
There's
moment.
There's a hashtag in that.
That sounds strange. Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much for calling in. Appreciate your comment, and thanks for watching along. Hey, have a good one, okay?
Thank you.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I still can't believe I dropped him. That might be the first time in like 75 shows that I've dropped somebody right when I begin to talk to them. So that's fantastic. Let's bring in our second caller here. We know him well. Lancer, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. Or as we know him, Norm. How you doing today?
Norm.
Hi.
Hey, my lady. Hello, sir. Good sir. I raise my glass to you, dear Innkeeper. Todd, I raise my glass to you. Suana, it's very nice to meet you, my lady. All right, here we go. See, you just unleashed the Kraken, dude. See, first, you have to keep the horn, and here's why you guys failed to mention this. And the last book, and yes, I know there's spoilers, but in the last book, remember, there's this huge hullabaloo about if the shadow blow the horn, then they could theoretically fight for the evil side versus the good side. So if we already know their capabilities because they blew the horn and we saw how badass they are, if we see that being used for evil, that would kind of heighten things to, oh snap, we need to get the horn back, and that whole tangent that goes on with that. So I'm going to leave that. Second, Suana, I disagree with you on the whole Teleran Riyadh thing on how it can work on screen. Here's why. We've seen it in action before. If you've seen the movie Tron or Tron Legacy, especially in the sequel, when they went into Tron Legacy, you had to put on your 3D glasses, and they showed the difference between reality and the quote-unquote dream state or the virtual reality state, which was Tron. So it can work on the big screen, especially with the amount of money that they're putting into this show. So it can work if done correctly.
I love the idea.
And here's my one.
Okay, yeah, go.
Here's my question. Is in these first couple of chapters, if memory serves, in Dragon Reborn, isn't there a scene with Massima or something like that going off the deep end, or starting to his descent into madness of, oh, Rand is the Dragon Reborn and we have to profess and spread our love for him and stuff? Because if my memory serves, if that is that in there, I would like to see more Massima and build that up and just show this massive cult of personality that is him, especially when we start getting into the Aram scenes and all of that stuff with what Perrin has to deal with. I would love to see more Massima brought up. So I'll let you guys discuss and marinate on what I've pontificated to you this Sunday. And you all have a great, great afternoon.
Thanks, Lancer. Appreciate it, man. Goodbye.
That guy is a huge nerd right there.
he's one of us.
He's my people. That's my people right there.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. So there's a couple of options he threw out here. I don't want to spend too much time on them and get too distracted here. I think Lancer just suggested that instead of not having the horn be blown, having it be blown by the evil side to show people the power. That's a radical decision I can't get on board with. Does anyone want to see that happen in the TV series? Either of you, or are you an up or down on that idea?
For the drama of it, I could be on the up, but I'm gonna have to say no.
I think we just cut you off, Norm. Yeah, we just said no to that idea, and I like the idea of Terangriel glasses. So yeah, that's a funny thought. I mean, I know that's not exactly what Norm was saying when he was talking about Tron.
I did have a thought about that. I mean, first, I'm not a fan of Tron for multiple reasons, but also, just because something works on the big screen doesn't mean it works on the small screen. I know the budgets are there, but there's so much more to do with that budget when you're making a TV show, that there are things that you do have to sacrifice on, and there are things that you won't. When you're making a big blockbuster film, there's literally nothing you have to sacrifice on. But in TV, there's always things that have to be sacrificed. And the amount of money that would have to go into the dream sequences, it makes me wonder, when they consider it, will they sit down and say, how well is the audience going to respond to this to actually make it worth the money that we put into it? That's my biggest concern. I'm not saying I don't want to see the dream sequence in the show. Of course I want to see it. I just think that TV will make it so that we see a far more simplified, stripped back version.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get to I actually don't want to address the Massima point just yet, because we did kind of skip past it a little bit in our discussion. So I want to jump back there.
It's a bit spoiler.
Yeah. Well, I want to jump back there and have that discussion here shortly, but I want to bring in our next caller to the show. It sounds like Daniel Green. Welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing today?
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me on. I appreciate you letting me butt in here to give my, opinions on the matter. So I hope you all are doing well.
Yeah, I hope you're doing well. So,
okay,
what are your opinions? Let's hear 'em.
Here we go.
Before anything, I also want to address the fact that our video that we collabed together just passed 100,000 views. So I want to say thank you for doing that with me.
Yeah,
you're amazing. But so this is completely unrelated, and I haven't been able to catch the full show. But this is like borderlining into my own fan fiction that I'd like your opinions on, if that's okay. This is the book where we get a lot less Rand than ever before, right? Like it's a lot more focused on other characters than Rand himself, as he's kind of going off and doing mysterious Randy boy things. I am kind of interested in them playing up some parallels to Logain, because we've also, through, Rafe's own fanning over Logain as a character, can assume he's going to be played up in his role. So I'd like to see whether it's subtle cues in the score or just ways he's presented or whatever have you. I'd love to see us, the readers, start seeing more parallels between Rand's growth and how we know Lan at this point in the show, because I think it'll help establish a lot of the arc he's going through, because, not Lan, Logain, my bad.
Yeah, sure.
Because as Logain is presented to us as a dragon, a false dragon, I think it would be very interesting to see Rand himself kind of become more of the mannerisms we see from Logain, as Logain is not quite insane, but definitely suffering from the taint. We could see some of the same afflictions come onto Rand, therefore upping the stakes of this less time with Rand, where we see, is he now going insane? Because for first-time viewers of the show, people who haven't read the books, this is going to be a scary time for people who are attached to the character of Rand. He's kind of more separate. He's doing these crazy things. And if I'm addressing something that's already been brought up in the show, I apologize.
No. We haven't really talked about this, which is Rand just left in our adaptation. He just skipped town, and so this is a great question, which is: are you suggesting that instead of we get very little of Rand in the books, but we do get some of this madness beginning to kind of develop in the Dragon Reborn with him? He's just it's less a madness, like the deep paranoia, right? This is where he ends up killing his friends in his dreams a lot, as he's making his way. This is where he's being attacked from all sides. Are you saying that basically what I'm understanding what you're suggesting is that they really play up that piece? Do you also want to see them kind of cut to Logain also in this moment? He's now in Tar Valon. Do you want to see Logain actually make more of a presence at this point? Or do you just want to see kind of basically what we saw with Logain maybe early on in the first season show up with Rand, and maybe this is the second season? Is that what you're kind of suggesting?
So because Logain's already been played up, assuming to this point from what we've heard, it's more that I'd like to see a lot of the cues we've seen for Logain through cinematography, through score, also applied to Rand. That way, we've seen this powerful, crazy false dragon. It instills in our minds subconsciously or consciously Rand's also this dangerous, unpredictable, chaotic element at this point. I'd like that. That way, I think it would really implant in the viewer's head that, yes, we've sat with Rand, you're comfortable with him, now you can't be. So, Logain's, he's taken care of by this time in the story. I think he's gentled in the tower, but just the way that Rand is presented to us, it could be oh no, is he going down a similar path? If you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I love it. So I hadn't thought about this, and I'll send this over to Suana to get her ideas, but I hadn't thought about them playing up the madness aspect. I don't know why I hadn't gone there with Logain early on. I just hadn't gone there. I went there with the sense of seeing him use the one power and seeing basically him be captured and in battle, but I hadn't actually played up the madness aspect. But I love that, because once you see Logain gentled, you do see that go away. And basically, in the sense of he's well now, if you will. he's healed,
never fully insane. Yeah, he's never fully crazy, but he definitely has moments of this guy's dangerous. He's a bit unpredictable. He feels chaotic. And so I'd like to see that same vibe pasted on over to Rand subtly, because I'd like for Logain, in my own kind of vision of the show, to be a force that feels dangerous. I don't want him to ever feel Logain. Do I keep saying the wrong name? I'm sorry. I want Logain to feel extremely dangerous, and I'd like to Rand at this point to feel that way as well.
Yeah, and Suana, to Daniel's point, do you like this idea of kind of playing this up and having the fans see, or viewers that have never read the books, see this madness beginning, something they'd already seen with Logain touching Rand at this point.
One of the things I think with them casting Alvaro Morte as an older Logain, it makes me wonder if we are going to see a slightly madder version of him, because he is older, so the chances are he's more likely to be affected by the taint. And I wonder if that's a deliberate thing to show us just what could possibly happen to Rand, and it potentially is there to show us those parallels. And I would like to extend on it as well, in the sense that I would definitely like to see more parallels between Logain and Rand, and I hope that's why they are given him an extended role, is to actually play the two off of each other. One of the things for me, I mean, yes, in my community, I'm Aes Sedai, but I actually really want to see the Aes Sedai be a very hated organization on TV. I really want to really have such a deep distrust and hatred for them. And one of the reasons is because I want everyone to go, okay, so there's this guy Logain and they gentled him. And here's this guy Rand and they didn't. Why? And I want to see those two parallels of each other, in that, what the hell is this organization doing that they can be so selective about what they do to two human lives as they do? So yes, I 100% agree. I want to see that as a plot device for TV in general, not just in this part, but absolutely throughout the whole season. And I do really hope that that's why they've extended Logain's role, is to really play into that a lot more.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And by the way, Daniel, before we do let you go here, I don't know if you've seen any of the show or you saw our last live adaptation, but you may have heard rumors of the fact that my panel decided to cut the blowing of the horn from the Great Hunt in our live adaptation. Are you in favor of this idea for the TV series, that the horn is not blown this early in the show as it is in the books, or do you think that my panelists are crazy?
I am pro cutting the blowing of the horn, and people might throw stones at me, but I agree. I think it's too much too soon, and I think the horn feels a lot more like a greater presence if it's actually more held off, because it feels like it's too quickly paid off in the series to me. So I actually think they could improve on that. And feel free to dislike and unsubscribe.
Yes, feel free to. This is so great. What I love is because there was so much. If you go back and watch that episode, there was so much. Like people threatened to unsubscribe if we cut the section. So great. I'm watching chat just blow up. It's so great.
So Daniel agreed with me. I'm out. See y'all.
Well, Daniel, you just made my day, man. Thanks for giving a call, and we have to collab again. I need to get on that and communicate with you. We need to do another video after that first one was so great. So appreciate it.
ASAP.
Okay, man. Hey, have a good evening. Yep.
You too. Bye.
Yep. Bye. Oh man, it was so funny to watch chat. It just rolled. Chat just rolled with wow, throw stone, let Barney blow. Why? No one wants him to blow it. Cut Calendar. Are you crazy, Daniel? Oh my gosh, it's so fantastic.
I'm all for letting Barney blow, but maybe just not blow the horn.
Okay, we have one more caller. We have two callers left. We'll take these final two calls, and that'll be our calls for the day. We actually did make it to chapter 6, which I thought was really impressive. We were moving fast there for a while because we jumped through so many. But let's bring in our next caller, Drew, to the call here. 1 second. Hey, Drew, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing today?
Hi, doing great. It's great to be on with you.
Yeah, fantastic to have you. So what are your thoughts, questions, comments?
Yeah, so it's not what I called about, but I'm going to cut in and agree. I'm going to expand on Daniel's hot take.
Okay.
Not only should the horns blowing be cut, I think we should also go back and cut or rework a lot of how the Eye of the World ends, simply because Jordan's world building hadn't cemented. So I would love to see Rafe streamline the world building early in the series with what we get late Dragon Reborn forward. And, I'm open to his vision and how he does that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of when we hit the Eye of the World, and we've discussed this. I think Nameless YouTuber did a video on explaining the Eye of the World, and he did that because honestly, the metaphysics, like you said, were not cemented. And those of us that love the metaphysics, even we have fun messing with the various theories about how that all could actually work within the rules that Jordan eventually created. So yeah, I think there's a lot of love for the idea of actually streamlining the Eye of the World. More so than there's any love for getting rid of the blowing of the horn. I can tell you that right now. So.
We're getting lots of love now. I'm enjoying it a lot better.
Yeah, please don't unsubscribe because of my panelists want to cut the blowing of the horn. So, well, Drew, so I agree with that hot take of yours. I think that's true. Some streamlining some of these things has to happen because, again, the Eye of the World is very confusing for almost every new reader, and I would imagine the same thing for new viewers. They would have the same experience.
Right. Well, Jordan was growing out of 80s, early 90s fantasy as an homage into, really what we got as a new vision for the genre. So
yeah,
I think he gets some slack.
Yeah, no, it's a great comment on the hot take. Was there any other final comment before we have you go that you wanted to make?
Yeah, I want to ask the panel. So we have a big disjunction with Rand in The Dragon Reborn on really 3 points to me. His competence channeling his personal agency, because he's been caught up in everyone else's schemes up until this point, and he really takes his destiny in his own hands. And then his sanity. We really hard cut to a freer agent, less sane, far more capable channeling Rand. And so how do you think the show can and should handle that in a way that makes sense?
Yeah. Todd, do you have a thought here?
Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier about walking the razor's edge. And I don't know how they're going to show it. That's one of those things that I can just say they need to do it well, but I don't know how you're going to do it.
You're like, it's good luck. You're like giving like Rafe like a good luck, man. I'm glad I'm not the one making that choice. Suana, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is why we're not being paid to do this, because we have no idea how. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've spoken about this before with some of our community members is like, will they even be able to capture the insanity of Rand with the voice in the head of Luz Theron? Because again, these are things that don't always generally translate very well. And an example is if you look at Deadpool, when they made the film, they actually took out the internal dialogue to make it more accessible. Whereas in the comic books, he very much has this little box that represents his what's going on in his head and his like sort of internal madness. So I think this is going to be probably one of the most challenging things to translate onto screen is Rand's decline in mental health and how quickly he descends into it as well in a way that actually looks realistic and also doesn't offend as well, because that's another key thing that you really have to kind of consider with, like, so many people struggle with mental health problems that you don't want to take away from something that is such an important topic by making it something that it's not. So it's not something I would want to personally have to do. So good luck to them, basically.
Yeah. No,
you don't suppose we're going to lose the scene where Rand, kills the merchants and stands them back up, do you?
I mean, I would be surprised if they don't really play up everything that happens to him. Like, I think they're going to want the viewers to lose trust in Rand in this moment. Right. I think that's what you have to do. You have to lose trust in what he thinks the truth is, what he thinks reality is. Right. You need to be where he is at the very end, where he sees his friends and he doesn't believe that they're real, right? And so whatever they need to do to get him there, I'm for at this point. Whether or not it's direct translation of everything that happens in the books, they just have to play it up. And not only that, we need to stop we need to wonder about Rand for the rest of the show, right? Like the various seasons as we go, it seems like he gets in control of it, but is he really, And
yes.
And I want to see that played up a lot. So, hey, thank you so much for calling. I appreciate you waiting on the line for us. And yeah, appreciate your hot take on the blowing the horn. It's still driving chat mad. So I need to go back. We need to have like an episode. I need to have an episode of the show that just talks about this one topic clearly, because there's a lot of opinions and a lot of people want to know how we would actually make the show work or the books work even without that. So that's a great question. Hey, thank you very much for calling and have a good afternoon. Okay.
You too.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So we're going to take this. I think that we have 2 calls here. We'll take these 2 calls, and I think we had maybe someone had dropped earlier that I didn't notice. So we'll take these 2, and then we will tie up the show here. So let's bring Tim into the show. Hey, Tim, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, you guys. Well, how are you doing?
Fantastic. So what's your comments or question for us?
So I've got a couple comments. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for taking my call, and I'm a long time, first time.
Awesome.
But first of all, I want to touch on, like, I think you can do almost the first half of The Dragon Reborn in one episode. Like, you can do everything. Like, I know you guys are only up to chapter 6 in this adaptation, but I think you can do everything that happens in the Cove with Perrin in the first 5 minutes.
You can get through it pretty quick. Yeah.
Well, because think about it, all of that is it's and he does this in most of his books, right? It's you're relearning who the characters are. He's iterating things that we already know as readers, and so you can cruise through that and get to the battle with the Trollocs within 5 minutes, and then you can like cut that to scenes of the girls traveling to Tarvalin and everything that happens, on their way outside the gates. Like you can cruise through all of that, just cutting piece by piece, and end with like them deciding on whether they're going to heal Matt or not. Which brings me to my next point. You have to have the freaking blowing of the horn. Like, come on.
Our live
adaptation. This is even a discussion. I'm sorry, Todd. I love you, and I didn't watch the episode where you cut that out. But sorry, because otherwise, what's the point of him getting healed? Like they have to make that decision, and whether they're going to go ahead.
Here's the point that I've tried to make is that the Aes Sedai are actually better off letting Matt die because
that's the point you're trying to make.
They're actually because if Matt dies, then they can pick whoever they want to blow the horn. So it's not necessary for them to have Matt. It just. I think that.
But you cut out so much drama. Well, you cut out all that drama of them deciding whether they're going to keep him alive or not.
But my favorite part about this is I was going to say my favorite part of this is that the disappointment of our last live adaptation a month ago is still simmering among fandom viewers of the show. And then not only today, we had viewers call in and say, yes, you need to cut it. And it just like reopened. It's like Rand's wound at the beginning of the Dragon Reborn. We've just ripped it open yet again.
Right.
And,
well, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I called in while Daniel Green was on. And by the way, oh my God, Daniel Green, love you. I'm a patron of yours. You're amazing. Sorry, I had to do that. But yeah, I wasn't going to bring this up until he had said that, and then your
no worries. No worries. It's good. It's good. Like I said, we need to do a show about this. We brought it up. It's clearly what I've seen in chat. It is clearly a divisive question, and I'm sure it's just as divisive well, I would imagine for Rafe and his team, which is this something we can do? So I love that you passionately supported keeping it in there. A lot of people in chat were excited that you made a comment because it had been like all for taking it out. So no, I totally appreciate that. Tim, thank you very much for being a longtime viewer and first time caller today. And I hope Daniel still earned your Patreon subscription, even though he disappointed you.
I don't always agree with everybody on the internet, but I still enjoy supporting them and watching. So.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, Tim, have a good one. Really appreciate you calling in and waiting for this call. Hey, have a good one, okay?
No problem. Happy Sunday. See you.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
So yeah, one out of 25, 30, what are we calling it? We had one that wants the horn, and then...
Yeah, well, there might be one more. We'll bring this last caller in, and then we'll tie up the show. Let's bring Tad into the call. Hey, Tad, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Thanks for calling us back in. So what's your comment or question you have for the panel?
Well, I guess my comment is that I would like to keep the horn, but not because I care about it at the end of the last book, but because I care about what it does for the end of the series. Like, if we don't have that scene, the horn could be like a Deus Ex Machina at the very end, and as soon as it gets blown, people will think that will be the end of everything. But like at the end of the last book, they make a point of saying, well, this is what we can do, and we can't defeat, all of the Sanchin. We can do some things, we can't do everything. But that's not actually, that's for the previous episode. My actual comment was I wanted to ask your guests, what they thought about opening, the Dragon, the next series with, you start with the prologue, and then you kind of flash to Rand already as a vagabond. He's already begging for food or, playing the flute. And he's already lost it. And he's, going crazy. And then you flash back to what triggered it. And you still get everything, but you start off the season with, the emotional bang of, hey, our hero who just had all his shit together is now gone.
Yeah, that's an interesting, I like that device. That could be really powerful, which is, especially if that's the end of a season of some sort, or maybe it's the next season and it's just like a mid-season kind of cut where...
Well, yeah, at the end of the previous season, he ended on this very, very high, everything's going to work out great. And then the next thing you know, he's in the gutter begging for food.
Yeah, and maybe that's where you see him, like he's injured at that point. His wound isn't healing. He's by himself. And you're wondering kind of how this came about. I absolutely love that, actually. For viewers, that would be extremely dramatic. They'd want to know exactly how this could come about, and then getting kind of flashbacks to what happened while still moving along the story.
Right, you still get the Trolloc Battle. Yeah. You still get, sexy Perrin. You get everything.
I love that you brought that back in. So yeah, Suana, what's your thought here before we let Tad go? What's your thought on this idea of kind of fast forwarding it into Rand's journey basically, and then kind of getting flashbacks of what happened?
Yeah, I actually really like it, especially because every TV show season has to start with something very dramatic having happened, because otherwise the first episode sets a precedence for the entire series. And if you've got people saying, oh, the first episode wasn't very good, then it kind of continues throughout the season, that feeling that it wasn't enjoyed very much. So you need something really dramatic. And that is quite a dramatic place to start, because especially if you've just ended on this high and then suddenly it's like, oh my God, what happened to this guy? It captures you in straight away, because you need to know, how did we get here from here? And also, and it goes back to what your last caller said as well, about how, half of this book you probably could wrap up in an episode, because there is a lot of it is quite slow to start. And when it does start, there's so much that you have to put in. So you wouldn't want to be in this situation where you have to squeeze the last part of the book into one episode. I'd rather see the last part drawn out over a few episodes to actually be able to capture everything. So yeah, I'm all for that. I think that's a really great place to start the show.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm going to ask chat this same question before we tie this this call up. Are you in favor of this idea that Tad just suggested? A thumbs up if you like this kind of fast forwarding to Rand's, vagabond state and then flashing back to some of the things happening that we learn about in the first couple chapters. Thumbs up if you like that, or thumbs down if you'd rather kind of keep the other side of this. Todd, are you a fan of this?
I think it would work. Yeah, I could go for that. Yeah,
it's a fun idea, Tad. Thanks for that one. I like that you did comment on blowing the horn, and I think we do need to address that someday, clearly, from what the chat has told me. But yeah, what a great idea for the TV series that Rafe and his team might end up using. A fantastic device. We've seen it in a lot of shows. I don't like that the way to start off a first season of a show, necessarily, where you're immediately kind of depending on flashbacks to tell a story. But a lot of shows have done it extremely successful, and this would be a second season likely of some sort. So, in my opinion, of how the show's going, and I like that this could be a way that they start us into Rand's descent into madness and paranoia and these things, and a way to understand what precipitated it later on. So, yeah, great thought. Thank you again for calling and waiting for this for us to bring you in. And have a good evening. Okay.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, fantastic idea. So that was what a wonderful group of callers. Really appreciate everyone calling in. This is what typically happens, Suana, is we're like making a ton of progress, and then we want to hear from the fans, and then we get to dig into all the mistakes. All this, tear apart what we've suggested or not. So we're not going to get to chapter 7, although like you've all said, chapter 7, yes, let's cover chapter 7. Does anyone think that we need to cover this? Like they go follow Rand. Cool. They do traveling stuff, which is like, whatever. So, unless any of you are calling for chapter 7, I think we can end this with chapter 8. So I want to leave this final thought with both of you and for chat. By the way, they answered with mostly thumbs up here for that idea that Tad suggested. The last thought is Massima. We do see this moment where the wolves come to fight, and he's like, maybe this is the end. We should tell people. This is the last battle. This is a sign. And then Rand leaves, and he doubles down on this. He's like, Rand left to tell people. We should tell people too. Do you like the storyline of the Prophet? And do you think that it's key for Rafe and his team to keep this in here? And I don't want us to dig too deep in it. I just want to kind of end it with, do we need the Prophet? We're not going to make a thumbs up, and we're not going to make a cut here just yet, because the Prophet technically hasn't happened. But would you, Suana, do you like Rafe and his team digging into this character? Or would you just like them to not bother?
Do you know, this could go both ways for me, because I do like the character, and I do enjoy the story. And I also kind of have a bit of a headcanon for him as well. So I can visualize it. But at the same time, it is a story that we see so often, is this kind of religious, fanatical group. And we've seen it. I mean, we had in Game of Thrones, you had like the Harpies and the Sparrows doing that very same story. And a lot of it has been done. And sometimes I think, okay, well, if it's been done, do we need to really do it again? I could go either way.
Yeah, that's a good question. I see some cut suggestions already in chat. Actually, everyone's kind of, well, maybe just one person was like, yeah, let's dig in, but the rest are like, yeah, let's cut it. Todd, are you a cut here? I know it's not for our adaptation. I'm just kind of curious. Is this something, Todd, you think that Rafe and his team should really dig in and build up, or should we get rid of this storyline?
Honestly, I would be for getting rid of it, but it's something, if they do want to use it, that they can push way farther back in the books. I don't think it's something they really need to start digging into now if they do decide to use it.
Yeah, I like this idea of maybe his team can just like push this off for a decision for later. There's no real need for it to just be developed this soon anyway. So, yeah, interesting ideas. Well, thank you very much, Suana, for being with us. I hope you enjoyed this.
It was great.
And again, for those of you that are watching, please check out the Weaves of the Wheel community. They're fantastic. They're on Instagram. It's a fun community to become part of.
Message me and come and join us. We have lots and lots of fans, and tomorrow we're launching some new gameplay as well, so come and check it out, please. who have
Awesome.
a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, do it. You can find their links in the description below. And again, thank you for everyone. If you can give us a like on this video, if you're still here, we'd love and appreciate it. Let the other fans know on YouTube to find us here at the Dusty Wheel. And we'll be back on Wednesday, remember that, with our new Readers episode. And if you liked or hated anything that we said today, you can tell us over on Discord. You can find us in the links below in the description. We go have a post-show discussion about everything we talked about here. And yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what everyone thought about all of our Cut the Horn callers today. So maybe we'll see you after the show over on Discord. And that being said, Todd, as always, appreciate you being here with us. And good afternoon, as we say from around here at the Dusty Wheel. And smash to black.
If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. If you want news and rumors